Oui, je vous remercie beaucoup. Je vais peut-être parler en anglais, bien que ma langue maternelle soit le français. Mais je crois que pour l'audience, c'est peut-être mieux. So, what I would like to tell you is a story. And as you mentioned it, Catherine, a few people from a certain age, after 20, 30, 40 years of professional career, decided to start again by scratch, from zero, and create a company. The idea was really to do something which we felt important for our life and for the life of the people. And so that's why I said we are a certain number of seniors with our experience, expertise, very important, our networks. And these are certainly key success factors for a company, but also to develop new technologies. Actually, I was really amazed this morning when I heard all these new projects, startups. And essentially, they were around the topic how to make our life easier. And what I'm going to tell you is the next step, how to make our life better. And actually, I think especially on a population, which we will attain certainly in a few years, some earlier than others, which is the population of elderly. And I will do this just focusing on one specific disease. You know, everybody knows it, Alzheimer's disease, and it concerns everybody. As you mentioned it, we are, in our families, concerned by this. We have parents, grandparents, etc. And I have to say the situation is going worse and worse, because in the next 20 years, the statistics are showing that about 2 over 4 people, so 50% of the people, over 80 years will be affected by one of the so-called neurodegenerative disorders. Alzheimer's disease is one, and Parkinson, we heard about, is another one, and there are many, many other problems. So I think the point is, it is a societal problem, and it is an economic problem. Just to give you a number, France right now spends about 70 billion per year for this big disease, Alzheimer's disease. And actually, when you have this number in your mind, you have also to understand that 90% of the Alzheimer patients are not in institutions. Who is taking care about these people? The families. And so there is another problem which is coming, that many people who are, let's say, caregivers, the families, actually, quite often the husband or the wife are also affected tremendously. And the level of suicide is about 40% in this population. It's huge, because it is a killer. It's extremely difficult. So now the problem is, what do we do? And certainly, I have to present myself. I have spent a number of years, first of all, at INSERM. I am a neurobiologist. Then I spent about 30 years in what we call the pharmaceutical industry. Some people say the drug companies. Drug is medication. And then I decided with a friend, a former French guy, polytechnicien, who is professor in the United States, we decided to think about this. How do we make drugs? How do we make medications? How do we make treatments? How do we prevent the disease? Or how do we protect? I will come back to these 3 words: treatment, prevention, protection. There are 3 different fields, and for an entrepreneur, there are 3 different markets. So what we did is really to put in place and develop a completely new technology to find new medications to treat Alzheimer's disease. And not only Alzheimer's disease, this can be almost used for any kind of brain disease, but also diseases from the eye, the spinal cord, and even the neuromuscular junction. And the idea is really to take into consideration the complexity of these diseases. And I don't have slides, but I saw two very nice slides in the previous presentations. To understand what the brain is, we had, from one speaker, we saw this imaging, you know, he showed this imaging where you made this deep brain stimulation in Parkinson's disease. So you already see a little bit what is in your head, what the brain is. And Niels showed, I use one of your slides to understand it. You see the galaxies, you see all these points and these things going. That's the brain. So how can you imagine that you can act at a certain place and treat Alzheimer's disease? It's just crazy. It's nonsense. Why? Because it is complex, it's multifactorial. And we decided to develop a technology which is at the frontier between, let's say, medical science, pharmaceutical developments, and informatics. And actually and I use again two words you used, computer simulation. So we developed simulators of what is in the brain. So don't be afraid, we are not yet there. What we can do is we can, on specific brain regions, model the different biological mechanisms which are involved in the functioning of the brain, and then we can introduce neuropathology. In other words, we can use the defects which are in the Alzheimer patient, we bring this in our model, and then we can see what are the consequences on different functions. There are thousands of reactions, and we thought the only way to do this is to model it. These are mathematical models. It's complex, but basically the principle is relatively simple. So once you have put all this stuff together, comes the dream. And the dream is the doctor makes a diagnostic. He pushes on the button, and the button says, or the computer says, that's the type of treatment you have to give. Unfortunately, again, it's not so easy as you can imagine. And for example, in Alzheimer's disease, almost 50 to 60% of the people have not the right diagnosis because there are many, many unknowns. But even with these many unknowns, there are also many knowns, and that's the way we develop this technology. Now, what do we do with this? So what we can do is really to help the academic institutions, the scientists, to better understand what they are doing, to help the pharma and biotech industry to optimize their drug discovery process. To give you an example, we are doing exactly the same experiments than those which are done in the laboratories, academic or industrial, with a few differences. One, an experience which is done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks is done in about, let's say, 5 minutes on the computer. Saving times is enormous. Second, the experimentalist is doing what is called the try and fail, because he doesn't know exactly. So he tries, it works, doesn't work, he starts again. Many instances, it doesn't work. So we do the try and fail on the computer, and then we guide the experimentalist to do the experiment, the right experiment. It's much cheaper, as you can imagine. I mean, the equipment, the animals, everything you can imagine. And then it's certainly more efficacious. Don't forget that the success rate today to make a medication is less than 5%. 95% is the rate of failure of the industry. If we can improve this, we decrease the costs, we decrease the time to market. So I have spoken about treatment, in other words, pills, medication. But there is also prevention. I was really glad to hear about the company. I mean, we are not here to make advertisement. But the agro-food industry, the first prevention is food, l'alimentation, la nutrition. That's the first prevention of this disease. Good food, the best food, optimizing what is in the food. So we utilize this technology for this purpose. And there is another one when I was talking about protection. Protection against what? We have here in the room and everywhere in the world a lot of agents which have impact on your brain. Of course, also on the rest, but my interest is the brain. That's what we call neurotoxic agents. So they are civilian and they are military. Actually, it's very accurate what I'm saying now, because we can use exactly the same technology to understand the risks of nerve gas, the armes chimiques. And actually, we have created a simulator, besides epilepsy simulators or simulators of cognitive deficits, also to protect the populations and find the right antidotes against this. And then we switch on another field, which is environmental factors, environmental products. And as you know, this is something which is really compelling, that many pesticides, the origin of the pesticides is the nerve gas. Actually, the same molecule has been used as nerve gas and later as pesticides. And it's clearly established, I mean, the French Parliament, l'Assemblée nationale and the Senate, they voted 2 years ago a text, a décret, showing the causality, so the relationship between the cause and the consequences in relation with Parkinson's disease. It's clearly established. I mean, scientifically proven. It's not yet proven for Alzheimer's disease. There are many studies doing this. So when you put all these things together, I think that all these factors have an impact on this type of disease, and really what we want to do is really to reverse the curve. So for the time being, the curve is really exponential. The curve of occurrence of Alzheimer's disease. And we think that using this technology, we can be able to, I mean, not only we, but people in this field, we can reverse this curve. That's my message, and that's the experience of our company. Just to say, we are 13 people, and it's interesting because we talked about all elderlies and young people. The young people, actually, I have most of my operational team are people, it was their first job. So these were engineers in mathematics, physics, chemistry, informatics. And the fantastic thing is really this, this melting pot between so different competencies, which really make the innovation, and let's go to better future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Merci.